Welcome to the Hamumu Halloween Home Horror Hoedown, the podcast where we watch scary movies so you don't have to.
From award-winning to completely unknown, we take them all way too seriously.
I'm your host, Mike Hummel.
And I'm your host, Solange Hummel.
Now, warning, we use a ghoulish number of spoilers, so watch the movies first.
Second warning, we don't know anything about anything, so don't take us seriously as we take these movies seriously.
It's good to be back. It's a lot of work, but it's important work.
It's important work. Where would the world be if not for our thoughts on random horror movies?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because we watch horror movies so they don't have to. If we stop,
they have
to.
We have put that responsibility on them for this whole summer. It's time we give them a break.
Yeah. So this is our gift to y'all. You do not have to do this anymore. We're going to watch them for you.
You're welcome.
Starting with
Don't Look Away from 2023.
Written and produced, of course, by the Michaels.
The Michaels. Don't Look Away was pitched to me by you as
oh, that's right.
a Weeping Angel story, a Weeping Angel type story.
It very was. I mean, absolutely.
When you say that, do you mean it very was pitched that way, or it very was that way?
It very was.
Uh-huh.
Because, I mean, they stole it. It's the story of a mannequin that, if you're not looking at it, it can just teleport around wherever it wants.
Yes.
If you are looking at it, it's stuck as just a normal mannequin.
I mean, there was nothing normal about this mannequin.
No,
it's stuck as a really creepy, skinny, toothfully faced, sunken eye mannequin.
Yes. What kind of products were they trying to sell on this mannequin? Because no one's buying them.
It was like an evil an evil Ken doll, life-sized evil Ken doll.
Yeah.
Mannequin.
So weird. But it did follow all the rules of Weeping Angels, except they never discussed the fact that the image of a evil mannequin is an evil mannequin.
True. Funny thing, not only did they steal the idea of the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who, but the very first episode of the new Doctor Who, not the original series, but like the new series, the very first episode with Christopher Eccleston.
Oh, yes, I know what you're saying.
Was mannequins chasing them around.
Yeah, I remember that. And I thought of that too. This is very focused. But wait, the stealing doesn't stop there.
No, it doesn't.
This movie is closely based on The Shining, including at one point there are characters watching The Shining on TV, which we don't see, but we can hear.
Yes. And I mean, I think thematically it was trying to be like the same idea of, somebody who's working really hard and that makes them crazy.
Yeah,
But also there was just a scene, scene where Jack Nicholson's character in The Shining is at the bar talking about his family to a bartender who's not there. Was just lifted whole cloth out of The Shining and dropped into this movie.
I think that was the writing process for this movie. It was like, I saw this scene once, let's put that in. And how about this scene? It was just a whole bunch of just straight copies.
Yeah. And unfortunately, and this is going to, we're going straight into kind of how I felt about this movie, but unfortunately, they didn't even do a good job of lifting it out of things, well done movies and shows, and putting it into this movie, because in the process, it lost all sense of emotion and cohesion and all the things that make a storyline good.
Yeah, it was. I have opinions on how it was done. I do want to say that the sound in this movie is so bad, or we've been having problems with our TV setup. Maybe our TV is so bad, but I didn't notice this anywhere else. All the sound effects seemed okay, but the characters talking seriously sounded like they were talking through like a 70s telephone. Like they were just down in a well talking to us. was very weird. Especially there was one scene where they were like all hanging out on the porch, and I was like, they're all so far away. I don't understand what's happening.
They all sounded like we often sound when we are recording our podcast.
Yeah, they have our level of audio artistry, which is really not a good thing to have.
So I didn't really notice that so much as I noticed how absolutely stilted all of the dialogue was.
Yes, it was.
Like, there's a thing that happens when people are just reading their lines and they're like, I have a line and I'm going to say my line now. And they forget that the line has to be connected to the line that came before and the line that comes after. They forget they're supposed to be portraying someone who is having a conversation with someone. And all of the lines in this movie, I mean, maybe not all, but most of the lines in this movie just sounded like they were being read into a microphone somewhere instead of being
somewhere far away.
Instead of them like recording a pretend conversation a group of people were having.
Yeah. It's kind of the opposite of other bad movies we've seen where they try to ad-lib everything and it's not good.
Mm-mm. The story is that this mannequin who is trapped in a box is being shipped somewhere. He gets out of the box. He starts eating a bunch of people. Everyone,
yeah,
I mean...
We'll have to discuss that.
Yeah. Everyone who sees him ends up dead. There's a very early bus in the
I know,
movie.
I wrote that. The first scene of the movie features a bus busing.
Yes. So she's driving her car and she hits one of the bad guys who was trying to steal this mannequin.
No, she hits the driver who was trying
She
to
hits
not
the
have it stolen.
driver whose delivery was disrupted by bad guys who were trying to steal the mannequin.
Yeah, that's how the mannequin got out of the box, is they opened the box.
So the driver's trying to run away from the mannequin. He runs into the street. She hits him with her car. She sees the mannequin. So now she takes the mannequin home with her, like not intentionally, but like now he's following her.
Yes,
and all of her friends see it.
That's one of the good things in the movie is it makes sense. The mannequin doesn't kill her for most of the movie. And, well, spoilers, he doesn't kill her at all. But he doesn't try to kill her for most of the movie because she's the last one who's seen him. So he needs other people to see him because he can only appear around her, I guess, until some other people see him so that he can spread around. Because otherwise, if he kills her, he ceases to exist, basically.
Yeah. Except that wouldn't be true if he hadn't killed all the people who saw him after her.
Well, yeah, but he's got to kill. Like, that's the whole point.
It's interesting to me, though, that he decided she was the one he was going to keep alive, and he was going to kill all these other people who had seen him after her.
Yeah, because he had to keep her alive at first because she was the last one left.
Right.
But then after that, he could have killed her next.
But instead, he kills Drake, Madison, Isabel, Lewis, Lucy, Jonah, and Steve, Beanbag Steve, and possibly others. I don't know. There were a lot of characters.
Yeah, an entire club full of people.
Oh, right. The dance club, the like rave.
Yeah, that was very early on where he just went and mowed down an entire club full of people. And just that should have been enough, I think. He was fine after that.
You would think. So there was a moment in that opening scene when after she hits the driver and she sees the mannequin, I'm like, is this whole movie just going to be like there's no cohesive cast. There's no like, this is who the movie is about. The movie is truly about the mannequin, and the mannequin is just moving organically through this town. Yeah. And like, it was just going to jump from person to person, family to family, whoever had seen him last. That's who he was going after, which having seen the whole movie, I wish it had been that. That would have at least been something kind of unique and interesting.
Yeah, that would have been unique. Probably not very interesting, but unique.
It would have been easily as interesting as this movie was.
Fair.
I had the thought, I'm like, well, there's no plot there. That's just a monster movie. A monster just going through and destroying as many people as possible. That's all this was. There were hints at plot, but it never really fully engaged with any of those hints.
Let me drop my praise once again. The scene where they figured out, that you can look at it to make it not move was well done. Like, conceptually, it was like they were all looking at it and it wasn't moving. Then they all looked away, which they kept doing, which even if there was no magic about it, keep an eye on it. It's dangerous. But anyway, they all looked away and they looked back and it was still there. And they're like, well, that's the first time that's happened. And then they realized their friend Lucy was in the window just staring at it that entire time. So they're like, oh, as long as someone's looking.
Yeah.
So I thought that actually made sense, and they had come up with a way to make that organic without having to have someone explain that to them.
Yeah. You know what doesn't make sense? And I'm going to criticize Doctor Who at the same time as I criticize this movie.
You can't do that.
I have never liked about the Weeping Angels, and I did not like about this mannequin, the idea that... I mean, at least with the Weeping Angels, it's if another Weeping Angel is looking at them, they're frozen. But in this one, it's if the mannequin is looking at himself in a mirror, he's frozen. Are you kidding me?
I don't know how that's the first time that happened. Feels like he should have gotten stuck at some point very early.
Right? And it doesn't make any sense that that would be what it is. I don't know. And it doesn't make any sense that that wasn't mentioned or discussed in any way, shape, or form prior to that being the solution. It felt very out of place and, like they were just like, well, we're done writing this now. We want it to end. How can we make it end?
Well, that's what happened. The dramatic finale to the movie was like he was coming after her. He had killed everyone else and he was coming after her, and she's like, where is he in the house? And she's creeping around. And this is probably not what they intended, but the way it seemed is like that she went into a room and he was in there looking at the mirror, stuck, and it was almost like he had been in there the whole time, like he had teleported around and accidentally ended up there, and she just came across him and was like, oh, well, that's convenient. And that was it.
I thought, and I don't remember if I actually saw this and that's why I thought this, or if I didn't see what happened and I just made the assumption that this is what it was. But I thought that when she was going into a room or a closet or something, she opened a door and then suddenly a mirror was in front of him.
Maybe that's what happened. Totally on accident.
But it was totally on accident. And I mean, I guess there's something to be said about that, but it just felt so like there was nothing in the lore of this monster that is a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have any lore, so that's fair.
Well, we had Blind Victor came and explained some of the lore of
yeah, you know what he said?
It's going to kill everyone you know and all that.
He said only the devil knows where it comes from. First my kids saw it, then my wife saw it, and that's it? It was just there one day.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, it could definitely be something that had been around for a very long time, but I don't know, back in the Middle Ages, they managed to trap it in a box with a mirror and somehow somebody unearthed it and opened it up and
dropped it, just like at the end of this movie.
Right. It just, yeah. And nobody knows, so now we're starting all over again. Well, I don't understand how this monster could be so indestructible and have done really so little damage in this universe in all of time. That's why is this not something that everyone is terrified of all the time?
Yeah, the story that old Victor told about how, who knows where it comes from, my kid saw it. I feel like they needed to have an evil department store owner did a ritual on his mannequin.
Sure.
Because it had to have a start point, otherwise... like you said, everybody would be dead.
Well, or everyone would at least know the story of the mannequin that you have to look at. And there would be, that universe would have had, okay, now I'm thinking what's the movie where they cover their eyes?
Bird Box?
Maybe. But the universe in which this monster is as indestructible as it is becomes a universe where people are deathly afraid of seeing something.
Yeah.
And so they would take precautions.
You would think. I was thinking, he would teleport around, but obviously he could only teleport. I mean, I'm calling it teleporting. It could be that he just ran super fast. We don't know.
It would have been fun if you would have heard the little pitter patter of his little mannequin feet running around.
But he would teleport around always to a place big enough to fit him, obviously, because that wouldn't make sense otherwise. But I never saw him move any objects or anything. Well, he made doors close magically, but he wasn't touching those. So I never saw him move things out of his way or, like get under a blanket or anything. And it made me think, if you think he's coming for you, get in your bed and pull the covers up. He can't teleport under the covers with you because that's not the rules.
Right? Okay. This universe, they learn that, and now these people in this universe travel around inside like a little, like just outside of their own size and shape bubble, like plastic bubble.
What you're describing is a Halloween ghost costume.
Sure. Like the one that Willow wore?
Yeah.
That was just a sheet.
Yeah. I guess that's what I meant.
Yeah. I feel like it would have been a different universe, and they didn't do any world building around what this monster really was like.
It was pretty weird. I mean, clearly it was very unknown until this moment.
Which would have been okay if the lore of the monster, like you said, was like a shopkeeper 50 years ago created this thing, and now it's running around, and it hasn't had a chance to really develop lore and understanding.
Okay, but here's the thing. I guess maybe it's possible we just didn't see this, but the beginning of the movie opens with the mannequin being shipped in a box by Blind Victor. He's going to take it to his estate and bury it or something. First of all, people got to stop shipping this thing. Just take it, just drive it there and bury it, and you're done. It's so easy. But anyway, not that obviously Victor can't drive, but someone could drive him. So anyway, the box it's in does not appear to have a mirror on it. So why
not
is it
in the
stuck
beginning?
In the box?
In the second, at the end, that's how we realized
that her box,
had a mirror in it. But no, I don't know how did it get in that box in the first place? Nobody knows.
Maybe that's what happened. Is his wife and kids saw it. It murdered them. We gotta get into this murdering. But first of all, it murdered them. And then he obviously hadn't seen it because he's blind. And so he's like, oh, mannequin in front of me. Let me put it in a box. And now no one's seen it at all. No one alive has seen it. So it's no longer has any power.
I guess.
Until the bad guys open the box.
See, I feel in this universe, people who don't have sight as one of their senses would have been like really important, valuable people.
But again, it was just created by a department store guy 50 years ago.
I have suspicions that it was created by Blind Victor.
He was a bad guy, which gets into the subtext of this film, the supertext of this film.
Supertext.
Which is that men are terrible.
This
movie worked really hard to make that point over and over. Focusing mainly on our friend Steve.
He was a lot.
He was the Jack Nicholson character. He even was writing his PhD thesis, which just consisted of the word mannequin over and over and over. And I was so disappointed that it wasn't, all thesis and no raves or whatever.
Make Steve a something.
A mannequin.
Yeah, Steve was terrible. From the very beginning, he was all red flags. Like, even the very first time we see Steve, he's talking to Frankie, who is the main character. He's talking to Frankie, and he's talking about how they have the next 5 years of their life mapped out. And he's, going on and on about how it's exactly what she wanted and blah, blah, blah. Now, this woman hit someone with her car, that someone died, and she drove her car home with blood all over the windshield.
Without even using the wipers.
And the cops let her do this. They just told her, okay, go home. And they didn't, impound the vehicle or anything. She just drove home with just red all over the front of her windshield. Mm-hmm. She is visibly shaken. She comes in, she opens the door, she grabs a tab out of the fridge, which is deep dive for a soda. Just saying. That's right there with your RCs.
What happens with that tab, Soli?
So she grabs a tab out of the fridge. Steve walks up and goes, "A tab? That's a good idea," and takes it out of her hand, opens it, and starts drinking it. So that she has to get another one out of the fridge. In the meanwhile, he's going on about how the next 5 years are planned out and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And he is completely oblivious to the fact that she is deeply traumatized until he finally stops talking and she bursts into tears. And he doesn't really have a reaction to that either. Like, the scene ends pretty quickly after that, but he doesn't, like, there's not a moment of him going like, oh, what happened? Are you okay? Like, he had no curiosity about this woman who is his girlfriend throughout the whole movie.
Because he is a masculine American man and an alpha male, or I don't know if it said that. There was was that a voice he was listening to on headphones?
I don't remember. There were just so many things.
There was just a voice from some source whispering to him, "You're a masculine American man." That was... There's a lot going on with Steve is the thing.
Okay, so then there's Jonah, who is the other, like, sort of love interest. It's the guy, the boy next door, who she's known since elementary school or whatever. And the timing was never quite right. It's, like, very tropey. And he's, like, more attentive, but also kind of gross in his own way.
Yeah. Well, I feel like he was the nice guy, which is not a positive
Never
thing.
a good thing. And then, of course, we have Blind Victor, who supposedly was there to save them and explain the whole situation, and then ends up murdering some of them.
Again, that's a case where I feel like the writing did something right, where, like, he had the right idea. He was going to murder all of them so that this would end, because then no one would have seen the mannequin. There would be no one alive who had seen the mannequin again. Makes sense.
And, you know, you're talking about how it's the men in this movie are terrible. I feel like Frankie, like, a lot of the women were just peripheral characters. They were there so that they could be murdered at some point. Yeah. Frankie, being the main character, was also terrible. She was so dumb and so helpless, and just, like, everything she said, I was like, what? Why did you think that? You know, Blind Victor is killing Lucy and Jonah, and Frankie is like, you came here to help us. There was no reason for her to believe that. Like, he just showed up.
Yeah.
And it was one of those situations where I'm like, why are we letting this guy in the house? What? You don't know him.
One of them had called him Jonah, I think.
Was it Jonah?
Oh, yeah. He put the message on the YouTube video from the crazy girl, and I don't know. The Victor was like, call me.
Yeah. That too, the whole use of social media, I was like, oh, well, this was written by someone who's never used social media.
Yeah.
It's like they were trying to use Reddit, but it was definitely someone who had never been on Reddit.
Yeah. So Steve also went through the whole movie doing very trademark not believing women. Like, Frankie would be like, oh, mannequin's trying to kill me. And he's just like, oh, silly woman. You're being hysterical. Everyone else leave the house. I have to have a talk with her.
Yes.
He was
Well, that
intense.
was very classic and tropey too, in that she has this group of friends she's close with, but she also has this boyfriend who doesn't like any of her friends and is very jealous of all of them, and, like, is essentially trying to keep her away from them. Like, wants her to not have any friends other than himself. He was very much like that TikTok character that one guy does of the, like, your man-child husband or boyfriend or whatever. He was very much like that.
Yeah, he was just not great, and I didn't like him very much.
No, I have a lot of comments in here that I cannot read out loud because you won't let me, but a lot of them about Steve and how much I don't like him and how I can't wait until he dies. And then he does. His head blows up and he walks around like a headless chicken for a while.
Yes, that was my note. His head got chopped off and he walked maybe 20 feet after that and then fell over.
Yeah.
They really wanted that to be a thing.
Yeah. Oh, they had to work into the story how Steve described in graphic detail a dream he had in which he violently killed Frankie because he was jealous of her relationship with the mannequin.
She was very close with this mannequin. He was always around. Yeah. When she came out, you know, she woke up and he wasn't in bed. She comes out to find him sitting on the couch murmuring things about killing her or something. And that's when he tells her about the dream. And it was like, I guess he was sleepwalking.
I mean, that was the first moment where I'm like, oh, this guy's not entirely all well.
He was legit crazy.
And the mannequin clearly had some kind of influence on him as well.
Yes. Is that a thing the mannequin does?
I don't know. I didn't even know that he had seen the mannequin at that point.
He
but
hadn't, I don't think.
Well, maybe he had and we just didn't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. But I was glad when Steve died. I didn't really care when most of her friends died.
Yeah. I cared when Madison died. She fell out of a window. And, you know, sometimes when you fall, like your arms and legs are sticking up, like your back is parallel to the ground and your arms and legs are sticking up and you fall down in kind of a U shape.
Like a bug. Like an upside down bug.
Yes. So she fell like that. And the instant her body hit the ground, she was flat. It was so funny.
Yeah, it was very noticeable and not great CGI.
Yeah, there was some of that going on in this movie.
Yeah. I don't know if it was CGI or if it was just they filmed it in a series of different pools or what, but the pool that the one guy, I don't even remember which one it was. I don't know. The one friend, though, who died in the swimming pool, like it was deep enough for him to dive in.
Yeah.
But then it was shallow enough that the mannequin appeared to be standing on the bottom and it only came up to like his waist.
Yeah.
Now it's possible that he somehow managed to float perfectly still and upright.
Well, he doesn't move when you're looking at him, and he's made of wood, so he floats.
When you look at him, is he like literally just frozen in place and it's like water, air, whatever is irrelevant?
Yeah, like you could watch him falling out of the sky and he just
it's like
stopped.
A fixed point in the universe that he's stuck to.
That makes some sense, though, like with the quantum things that Weeping Angels are into. I don't know if he has the same issues. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, the pool was like a variety of different depths.
Yeah.
Depending on what was happening at any given moment.
And I want to go back to Steve's headless chicken death.
Okay.
Because he stumbles around with no head, falls down. The scene cuts to the next scene, which is everyone running into the house and running around going, "Where's the mannequin? Oh no." Frankie, from this point on, is 0% concerned that Steve has just died. She's like, "Guys, I think we should go over here." It's like not even a hint of emotion.
I don't blame her for being like, whew, he's out of my hair.
Have that emotion.
No,
She's
she
just
didn't.
Like, I'm scared there's a mannequin after us.
Well, this whole movie was so disjointed. And like, I think they were trying to be artistic in how they were cutting it. Like it did jump abruptly from scene to scene. I think that was intentional, but there's a way to do that where you get the vibe of what that's doing, but it doesn't actually destroy the story. And I think that this one, there were chunks left on the cutting room floor that were necessary to understand transitions from place to place.
I suspect there were no chunks containing her being sad about Steve.
Probably not. Probably not. Another weird thing, just like the vibes of this movie were so off. Steve is dead. Jonah, does he end up being dead? He gets stabbed by Victor, but then he comes back and he kills Victor. Oh, but he does die on the street later, right?
Does
he bleeds to death. Yes.
The ending?
Yes. Okay, so Steve is dead. Jonah and Frankie are like doing their thing. I'm like, oh, okay, so Jonah's going to be the guy who's left at the end. Then Victor stabs Jonah. Mm-hmm. We think Jonah's dead. Jonah pops up the last minute to save Frankie from Victor. Yay. Mm-hmm. But she can't get him to the hospital or to help soon enough. He bleeds out on the street. So now Steve and Jonah are dead.
Okay.
I have
questions.
And at this point, the movie, the soundtrack turns into sort of this like sort of sexy song as Frankie and the mannequin are like still interacting with each other. And I'm like, wow, she didn't care when Steve died. She's like, that's fine. Jonah's here. And then when Jonah died, she's like, that's fine. I still got my mannequin. Mm-hmm. It was weird. The music choice was weird in that moment.
Yeah, it was a very weird music choice. I thought it was quite romantic. But it was then followed by her defeating the mannequin. Great. And then we cut to this scene, which, is it a dream? Is it the future? I was very confused, where she and Jonah are like living a life together and they're like, oh, I'm so sad that all of our friends died, but hey, we're hanging out.
It was right before the epilogue, because I think that was like a hallucination that she was having, like a vision of what her life could have been if she had made a different choice when she decided to go with Steve instead of staying and seeing if something would work out with Jonah.
Why I thought it was weird that they were discussing all of those people being dead, but I guess.
Well, because I think it started as this hallucination of like, oh, what life would have looked like. And then reality kind of pushed in, because then
very artistic.
Jonah ended that scene by asking like, but where is it now? Like, which is what she should have been worried about in that moment. Not like, oh, if only I had. And then it immediately cut to the epilogue where it's in the box being shipped, and then the shippers drop it and it breaks out and it eats everybody again. And the whole thing starts all over again, which the main theme that I took away from this movie, the key message from this movie, is that shippers cannot be trusted. Yeah,
for sure. In the first situation, it's not the shipper's fault, but it does highlight problems with the security of shipping, that people are going to come and rob the truck, for sure. So, yeah.
I did think it was funny that for both of those incidences, there was discussion about the fact that it had been insured. In the first one, it was somebody, I think Victor was pointing out, like, it doesn't matter if it was insured. Like, that's not the point. Like, it's something terrible.
Be worth a life.
But at the end, the shippers broke the box and it gets out. And the last thing that they say before they get destroyed is, well, at least it was insured.
Yes.
Which also, I'm like, is this just a really long way to get to insurance is a scam and shipping companies are terrible?
That could be a part of it. A part of the, again, subtext of this artsy film with all these layers.
Indeed.
So you said that the mannequin destroys them. And we've talked about so many people getting killed. How does the mannequin kill people?
However it wants. Literally, it just blew up Steve's head with its brain, I think.
Yeah. It cut somebody's throat without ever moving. A great scene that has not been discussed. Jonah's wandering around outside, afraid that the mannequin's following him, and he sees a guy getting into a van and driving away. And behind that guy driving away, a guy on a bike is coming up, and he comes up behind the van before it starts moving. And then the bike empty rolls out in front of the van, and we're like, whoa! And then the van drives away, and we see that the guy's dead there, and the mannequin's in front on top of him. What?
There was no consistency. There was no stuff. Yeah. And I think you have talked about that with other movies, where if they don't create some kind of rules around how the thing acts, like it could just do whatever it wanted. And I think the idea there is that then they could do whatever, like, unique, gory thing. Like if you say it has to tear your head off, well then as it kills all these people, we're just watching it tear a lot of heads off. And this was like, no, we're going to see that, and we're going to see this, and we're going to see this other thing. But it just made it seem very chaotic.
It was insane. The whole premise of the mannequin was that it never moved at all. And it's not like you'd see it in different poses. It was in the exact same pose all the time, everywhere. And so then, like, when it went to kill Drake, it popped up behind him. It didn't pop up, of course. It was just standing behind him in this room. Everyone else was outside the room, and they saw it behind him, and they were like, oh, no, it's behind you. And then the door slams shut, and he gets murdered behind the door. And I'm like, how did it close the door? Does it have telekinetic powers?
I mean, I feel like frequently it did things where it didn't actually have to physically work on the world. Like it did have telekinetic powers.
Which reminds me, it electrocuted him. That's how it killed him for some reason. And I don't even know why. Like it wasn't like it was an electrical room or something. Like I was like, oh, maybe, the things in here are being used. But no, it's just kind of randomly electrocuted him.
Chaotic. There was a list of ways people can die. They hadn't used that one yet.
Well, they definitely hadn't. So that's good. You might be surprised to hear that I thought this was a pretty dumb movie.
What?
And it wasn't, quite the kind of asylum fun craziness where it was, I don't know what's going on and I'm laughing the whole time. It was mostly kind of dull. But the fact that they tried to squeeze in Steve being completely insane and murdering people almost. And then Victor showing up and murdering people. And like none of that was a part of the story of the mannequin. I mean, Victor was, but like he didn't have to kill people. Like they just wanted to throw in all this stuff. And it was just so weird that was fun. What were they thinking here? They were just like, we've got things we want to do. And one of those things was talk about how men are terrible, because they very clearly had that as a message in here. Also, there was a woman named Molly who gave Frankie Molly.
Was it actually Molly?
I don't
or was
know.
it just, it was a very bright colored pill with a yellow pill with a smiley face on it.
Yeah,
which
you can look it up on that thing where it's like, if it says 317, it's a Tylenol. The yellow smiley face is one of the drugs.
I mean, I think it was supposed to represent Molly, and her name was Molly, and
her
it
name was Molly.
Just too much.
That's a message. That is art.
Is it?
Oh, yes. Every step of the way, there was serious art going on. And like, for example, Molly goes running out of the club to escape the mannequin after everyone else in the club is dead except her and Frankie. Frankie's following her. Molly runs out the exit door.
Slams it closed behind her.
And Frankie can't open it because it's a fire exit. It better not be locked.
Right. It has one of those slam bars.
Which is part of the fun, because then, like 30 seconds later, Frankie is being scared of the mannequin and like falls back against that door and hits the slam bar, and it opens right up.
Yep.
So it turns out she didn't actually try pushing on the bar.
No, she just forgot how doors worked.
Yeah, she was very frightened. That's understandable. See, again, art. That was realistic panic moment. So, based on all the art coming in from all the directions and the acting, audio, all this great stuff, I would give this movie 2.5 baseball bats out of 5.
2.5. All right. For me, it didn't feel quite as arty as you're suggesting. I mean, I know you're being funny, sarcastic there, but it didn't work as well. Like it was one where if someone wanted to hate watch a movie and like talk through the whole thing and make fun of all the pieces, like this has a lot that is there to make fun of.
There is a lot that's pretty entertaining.
Yes. Where it really falls apart for me is that the story was not, there wasn't enough interest. I didn't care about these people at all. And there were moments where I was like, oh, we're almost going to hear something. Because, a couple times Frankie's parents were mentioned, that they had died, and that, at one point Steve throws, "You're just like your mom," or something like that. It's just like your mom said, or whatever.
They tried to put in stuff in this movie.
But it was all, like, there were just little tiny hints, and it just left me going, okay, well, you didn't give me any of that. You just hinted that it existed and then still kept it a secret. Like, I don't feel like I'm in on this joke.
It's affecting them. It's a part of the art.
It was affecting them. The problem was it didn't affect me.
No.
But I did make the note at the end that this movie sort of feels like a film school graduate project.
Yeah.
They were trying to do a lot. It just didn't work.
That sounds right.
And, I would say it's possible that these people who made this movie, given practice, could figure out how to use all the pieces that they had. They just didn't quite know how to use them now.
Yeah.
So I am going to give this 2 baseball bats out of 5.
Okay.
But I will say, if you are looking for a movie to watch, to make fun of, because that's something that's fun for you and your group of friends, this one would work for that.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I was saying at the beginning of mine, is that I don't think it's great for that. Like, I wasn't laughing and talking a lot during it. I was mostly kind of like, a slack-jawed.
I think if I had known, like, I was expecting it to be more serious.
Yeah.
Not serious isn't the right word. I was just expecting more, and so I was like trying to engage with it and let it tell me a story. If I had known from the beginning there was no story to be told, then I could have, like, this could have been a Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of a watch.
Yeah,
but we weren't watching it in that way.
But it's not, it's not super fun like some of those, but it could definitely work in that way.
Yeah. Well, that's that. We have definitely started our return with the cream of the crop.
Yes.
There's nowhere to go but up from here.
We were going to watch a different movie, and I said, oh, it doesn't have a very good rating on IMDb. And so we watched this, which had 2.2 points lower of a rating.
I will say that because that other movie was a time loop movie, and we changed our minds at the last second, there were multiple points while we were watching Don't Look Away that I was like, when is the time loop going to happen? And then I would have to remind myself that wasn't the same movie. And then I would be a little sad that we didn't watch that one because it wasn't going to be good.
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe we'll watch the time loop movie next.
Maybe, but should we watch 2 bad ones in a row? On purpose?
We'll see. I guess people will have to tune in next week to find out.
Ooh, that's such an exciting cliffhanger.
A hook.
It's a hook to hook you. We'll see you next week, whatever it might be.
All right, bye.
Bye. Hey, this is Mikey tuning in from FM 777 382 on the dial.
And this is his friendly sidekick, the Burb.
It's Mikey and the Burb. The Burb?
I don't know.
Like suburbs or like bird?
Both. I don't know. Oh. I was just making a sound. I wasn't thinking about what it meant.